Well, this is my fun bench here, and with that we have lots of tools we're starting to get into and pieces for our bow hunting. And it's a workbench my buddy Aaron is letting me borrow for a while. It used to be his father's back in the day, so that's something he wants to keep until he has a garage. So we're using it, and I appreciate it. But you can see we're scattering all kinds of stuff on it for right now. Some of our sights, our releases that we have on here too. One of my Carter's binoculars, but we just shoot right around the corner here. So between hanging our bows over here and having this workbench is excellent. And today I want to go over what I feel are the #1 broadheads out there. You know, that starts a lot of controversy, and I'm sure many of you are aware I don't mind controversy if I really feel passionately about something. So broadheads are an interesting topic. You know, it's Ford, Chevy, Dodge discussions, and it could get hostile. I've seen broadhead forums or threads on forums get shut down because it got so hostile. I mean, ridiculous, guys. You know, these broadheads and everything. When I talk about three main, I've used them all. I use expandables, for example, including some Rage broadheads, and that was at a period of time from 05 to 2010. And so, 95 to 2010, so 15 years, mostly rocket heads, a little bit of Rage thrown in there, and there's some other kinds too that I can't even remember. I used those for a long time. I liked them. What I liked about the big expandable broadheads was if you hit a soft tissue area that was undesirable, then you usually got a big hole and you have a good blood trail and a lot of loss of blood, and I felt that you could recover animals very well. The problem, soft tissue. And so a lot of people, if you're using a heavily angled shot, if you're hitting something through the ribs at an angle, even the scapula, which is easy you could go through the scapula probably with a field point. Not that I recommend it, but it's a soft area. People say, oh, I blew through both shoulders. Well, if there's a scapula, not a big deal. Heavy bone, you're not going through that with any broadhead. And so that's very important to understand. But bottom line is, whether you're going through a scapula and you're hitting it at an angle, I had a broadhead, literally steep angle, 2-inch cutting diameter, expandable, hit the side of the deer at a steep angle going down, top of the rib cage. Would have gone through at a straight angle, would have been great. But that one broadhead tip or blade caught, it rode down the side of the deer, and I actually shot the deer 10 days later. And so I could find that cut all the way down its side, about a 10-inch cut where that broadhead rode down the side of the deer. If there was a heavy arrow, no, that wouldn't have helped. It was still, the broadhead was the problem. The broadhead hits that and steers. It's very easy to do so. And when we're talking a difference of, you know, 100, 150, 200 grains of total arrow weight, it's not gonna make that much of a difference. But those big blades can ride down. So there's some pluses and minuses to that. Again, soft tissue hits with a big blade, you're doing great. Bone, not so great, no matter how heavy your arrow is. And so that's just what I've experienced. And this is going back to, we were first using large expandable broadheads, and I forget what the name of them was, where they're well over 2 inches cut in diameter, but we were using those with 2117 Easton arrows back in the day, 2219. I don't know if you remember those, but it was a thick-walled aluminum shaft, but 2219 is very heavy wear. We're talking arrow weights of 600 to 700 grains because that's all we had. Very slow bow weights, 220 feet a second. Your range estimation was extremely critical. But we were putting those big broadheads on. We found they weren't made that well. They hit the dirt at 40 yards, 30 yards. But bottom line is, we were shooting an animal in the mid-30s. We had to be so critical with our distance because our arrows were so slow. We're using big, heavy, flexible arrows. When they hit, there's a lot of give to that arrow shaft too. So the stiffness of the arrow matters too, not just the weight of the arrow as far as how it penetrates into a deer. That wide broadhead though, there's a place for that. Like I said, if you're hitting soft tissue. I went that route and I went to the other extreme. I wanted to try something different. And that was, I'd shot a lot of deer with the rocket heads, even down to a 57 grain Wolverine on a Carbon Express 100 arrow back in the day. Those 100 arrows, I bet you that total arrow weight was 270, 280, somewhere around there with a 57 grain broadhead, but it flew straight, passed through a lot of deer, well over 200 pounds dress weight in those days, and they worked. I wanted to try something different. I went to the small fixed blade heads. That's the third style of head. I think the first one I used was a TrueFire T1 or something like that. It had replaceable blades, similar to a G5 Montec, which is a fixed blade head. Slick Trick is another one where it's a fixed blade, small head, really good quality head. I've used a Carbon Express, I believe it was F1 maybe, where it had 2 bleeder blades up and down, and then the 2 side static blades that were solid. I liked those blades. I liked sticking my arrow far into the dirt on the other side. Of course, always 2 holes with just about any broadhead I've used, but that seemed to be the ultimate in penetration, where I knew I was going to go through. Still, not enough penetration to crack a bone and go through bone, split a bone, no matter what I did with those heads. But definitely, once they flew correctly and you got them flying right, typically they were off maybe 2, 3, 4 inches at 40 yards. So once I established how far they were off, that would carry all the way from 20 to 70. It'd be the same distance off. So once you correct that with some minor adjustment in your sight, they flew great. The expandables, didn't have to worry about that. I like that fixed blade head, but I saw at times where a wider cutting diameter, say for example, if I'm close to the upper of the liver as opposed to the lower portion of the liver, or in the liver but just a 1/4 inch out of hitting the lung or something like that. There's always those minuscule things, because I mean, shooting deer in bow hunting is anything but predictable as far as even the distance, what their bodies might do during that time at the shot. So you have to be very careful with all these things. So I went from that wide expandable down to small expandables like the Wolverine that was only 57 grains. And then went into the fixed blade heads, very small hole, but great penetration. And then now I've migrated towards more of a hybrid head. For the last couple of years, I've been using this Muzzy Trocar HB. You see this arrowhead right here? Very small and compact, flies very well. And what I really like about this is a lot of those smaller heads are inch and an eighth, inch and 1/16, whatever it might be, not even inch and a quarter. But when these come out and when they hit that deer and they open up with that hybrid portion, you have the 1 inch width of bleeder blades right here, the fixed blade portion, but then you have 1 inch and 5/8 of these 2 expandable pieces that come out. And I like that. They can move around bone pretty easy. You have this really nice chisel point that Muzzies are famous for and known for. Trocar tip or whatever they call it. It's a fixed ferrule right there, solid one piece with the blades. And then you have the 2 bleeder blades. So I like something like this because it's a compromise between those old wide cuts that potentially could snag up on bone or at steep angle shots or difficult angle shots, even quartering away where you're trying to put it back behind the ribs right in. Or those fixed blade heads that gave you a nice pass through, great penetration, but a very small, tiny hole. A lot bigger hole on this. I like this tip right here where it has the ability to get in at steep angles. That tip's going to drill in first, and that'll allow that wound channel to continue through. It's not getting caught on a blade first, because these blades are tucked back before you hit. So because there's only 2 blades to open like this and they're smaller, not as much energy to open this blade. So you're not losing energy from your bow as much. You still are, because it takes energy to hit that body and open up these blades. But some of those bigger mechanical broadheads are taking up to 15, 18% of your energy on the shot to open that and expand that. And so you're losing a lot of wasted energy, kinetic energy or speed, whichever way you want to look at it, but you're losing kinetic energy when you hit the side of that animal to open those blades and create that wound channel going through. This, to me, for my 3rd year in a row, is my #1 broadhead. I like these. I saw them at Lacrosse Archery when I go the other day. So I picked up a couple more packages. I'll get a few more too, but I like this. Again, doesn't take a lot of energy to open. Creates a really nice wound channel. I've enjoyed that on the deer that I've hit with recently. It's not too wide where it's going to hang up on bone and difficult angled shots. And so this to me right now is all around head. Really like this one a lot. I'm buying these. I'm not paid by these people to use this product, or I wasn't given these broadheads by anybody. I just choose to use them after 35 years, 36 years of bow hunting and using just about every broadhead under the sun and testing a lot regularly. So I hope that makes sense. And this is what I'm shooting. In the end, the #1 broadhead, what is it? Well, that's my personal choice for this year. But it doesn't matter if you're using that wide expandable cut, this type of hybrid right here that gives you a little bit of a balance, or even that small little head that gives you ultimate penetration. It really boils down to, of course, making a good shot. And what I find is most of the time when people are hitting animals with a broadhead, they're killing them. Now, that really depends on your tracking ability though. And what I find is people are rushing the shot. So what's the best broadhead? It's probably the one that you use, that you exercise patience with when you after the shot, and making sure that you recover your deer in the appropriate amount of time. I literally read something on one of my comments on YouTube that if you used a heavy arrow, that you didn't have to wait 5 hours to go track the deer. Well, if you hit it in the guts and you have a heavy arrow, you gotta wait. If you hit it in the intestines, you gotta wait. It doesn't matter how heavy the arrow is or how wide the cut is, you still have to wait. You still have to make responsible, ethical decisions after the shot. And that's where I find with broadheads that people are constantly blaming broadheads, blaming the arrows for their personal failures with decisions after the shots or at the time of the shot. And really, most any quality broadhead on the market today is a good broadhead. We're not going to get into the discussion of Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. And I like these because I can shoot them. They fly really well. They give you a good wound channel. They're a tough broadhead. Muzzy is known for a tough broadhead. And they seem to be a good balance for me right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm changing to something else next year, the following year. I was thinking about trying a few this year, and I saw these at like I said, at Lacrosse Archery, and thought, yeah, there's a couple packages, I'll pick them up, I'll add them to the ones I already have, and we'll call it a season for broadheads. So I enjoy shooting these. Again, whatever broadhead you're making ethical decisions and responsible decisions after the shot, it's going to be the head you should use. And I want to show you on this too. We're going to do a little experiment here because I've been sighting in my bow. It's at, shot it out to 70 yards, out to 100 yards actually, and 70 yards I've been shooting quite a bit. So we put one of my old junky broadhead targets down there that's, I'm actually replacing it. I actually pulled it out of our garbage pile, and I'm going to shoot at it at 70 yards. We're going to see how this flies. This is the first time I've stuck one of these broadheads on with my new VXR that's around the corner, and on these Victory arrows, using these for the first time. Again, I bought these. I wasn't given these. These are great arrows, came with good recommendation. The Victory, they're the VF TKO, and so they're the more normal size, normal diameter back that I was used to using for many years. So we're going to shoot this out at 70 yards and see how it flies, and that'll be the true test for accuracy, and we'll see how far I'm off from where I hit. And let's go fling one and see what happens. I'm kind of curious. We have a little wind out there. I'm not trying to make excuses because I can, again, tuck right down around the corner right here, shoot 70 yards at the target, and we'll see how they fly. Hey, sorry to interrupt this video, but my web class series is finally begun. How to design your whitetail property is on my website, and there's a link in the description. Please check it out.
I'll do.
Where'd it hit? I can see the red down there.
Please note Jeff's amazement.
What the heck? Well, kind of cool. We just shot that at 70 yards. That's the first shot with these broadheads, and I have to admit my groups at 70 yards are not that great. They're probably like at 70 yards, I'm usually keeping them on this morel right here, right in this area right here. So, you know, like a 6-inch group or something like that. And I'm working every day. I know I'm capable of shooting better, but I'm not where I should be right now for shooting, especially long distance. But this is right within that wheelhouse. You know, we're about 3 inches off from center with this arrow, and that's that first shot. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy shooting an arrow like this, or a broadhead like this, because it gives me that ability. It's a hybrid, so I'm getting that decent mechanical cut. It's got the 2 fixed bleeder blades on it. Even though they're only 1 inch in diameter, those things are really tough with their 1-piece ferrule with those 2 blades. And then you get that balance with the accuracy too. It's not the total expandable where it's just tight blades together, but it's not that fixed blade head that gives you a little bit more penetration but less cutting diameter. So again, this seems to be the perfect blend to me, and this is at 70 yards. No, I will not shoot a whitetail in the woods at 70 yards. I don't care. I can guarantee by the season starts, I'll probably be keeping a 4-inch group to 3-inch group almost all the time at 70 yards. Once my shakes start to go away a little bit more, they're going away slowly. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to shoot a whitetail that distance around here, but I will shoot 35 to 40. And that again goes back to practicing double what you would shoot in the field. We have some shooting tests that we'll be doing in the next week, just showing that drop in arrow. But this arrow right here, if I estimated that a deer was 35 yards and it was really 40, I'm going to drop out 4 inches. And so that's a pretty good mark. And in the deer woods, you're never going to be able to say, well, that deer's 32 yards unless it's standing next to a 32-yard stake out in the field and you shoot it. And so I like this balanced setup. I like the balanced arrow. I'm shooting 392 grains of arrow overall. This will go through anything up to elk, and I'll get good penetration. But again, you know, pretty decent for that first shot. And what we're doing here is, after I shoot these right here, we're just taking the head off so that I can just easily pull back out the arrow and get it out of here. I have some new and improved broadhead targets coming soon, so I can't wait to get those. We'll shoot some more, and I think what I'll do is go shoot this at 70 yards and push my luck and see where that arrow hits. I've been hitting a little bit to the right. That's a flaw in my form right now. It's just, for whatever reason, I'm losing my bubble over that way, and when you're starting to tilt that way, the arrow's going to go that way. And so I've been working on that lately when I've been shooting, but we'll go take another shot and see where it goes. There's also wind coming this way, pretty heavy. So we'll see where the next one hits. And you know, not that I recommend you go right out of the box and shoot 70 yards with a broadhead, but when you have something like this that flies well, quality broadhead, don't be surprised if it's hitting exactly where your field points do. And I've already tuned this in for a high level of accuracy out to 70 yards. We've shot it back to 100 yards. And this is why this year I'll be using this broadhead, and we'll see how it goes this season, but maybe I'll use it next year too. I've been pretty happy with these.